The first season of the television series The Wire commenced airing in the United States on June 2, 2002, concluded on September 8, 2002, and contained 13 episodes. It introduces the drug-dealing Barksdale organization and the police detail that is investigating them. The first season aired Sundays at 9 p.m. Eastern in the United States and was released on DVD as a 5-disc boxed set under the title of The Wire, the complete first season on October 12, 2004 by HBO Video. Plot: the first season introduces two major groups of characters, the Baltimore Police Department and a drug-dealing organization run by the Barksdale family. The season follows the investigation of the latter over its 13 episodes. An investigation into a large Baltimore-based drug dealing is triggered when Detective Jimmy McNulty meets privately with Judge Daniel Phelan following the acquittal of D'Angelo Barksdale for murder after a key witness changes her story. McNulty tells Phelan that the witness has probably been intimidated by members of a drug trafficking empire run by D'Angelo's uncle, Avon Barksdale, having recognized several faces at the trial, notably Avon's second-in-command, Stringer Bell. He also tells Phelan that nobody is investigating Barksdale's criminal activity, which includes a significant portion of the city's drug trade and several unsolved homicides. Phelan takes issue with this and complains to senior police department figures, embarrassing them into creating a detail dedicated to investigating Barksdale. However, owing to the department's dysfunctionality, the investigation is intended as a four-section aid to appease the judge. An interdepartmental struggle between the more motivated officers on the detail and their superiors spans the whole season, with interference by the higher-ups often threatening to ruin the investigation. The detail's commander, Cedric Daniels, acts as mediator between the two opposing groups of police. Meanwhile, the organized and cautious Barksdale gang is explored through characters at various levels within it. The organization is antagonized by a stick-up crew led by Omar Little, and the feud leads to several deaths. Throughout, D'Angelo struggles with his conscience over his life of crime and the people it affects. The police have little success with street-level arrests or with securing informants beyond Wallace, a young low-level dealer and friend of D'Angelo. Eventually the investigation takes the direction of electronic surveillance, with wiretaps and pager clones to infiltrate the security measures taken by the Barksdale organization. This leads the investigation to areas the commanding officers had hoped to avoid, including political contributions. When an associate of Avon Barksdale's is arrested by state police and offers to cooperate, the commanding officers order the detail to undertake a sting operation to wrap up the case. Detective Kai McGregor is seriously injured in the operation, triggering an overzealous response from the rest of the department. This causes the detail's targets to suspect that they are under investigation. Wallace is murdered by his childhood friend's body and put, on orders from Stringer Bell, after leaving his secure placement with relatives and returning to Baltimore. D'Angelo Barksdale is eventually arrested with a large quantity of drugs, and learning of Wallace's murder, is ready to turn in his uncle and Stringer. However, D'Angelo's mother convinces him to rescind the deal and take the charges for his family. The detail manages to arrest Avon on a minor charge and gets one of his soldiers, Wee-Bey, to confess to most of the murders, some of which he did not commit. Stringer escapes prosecution and is left running the Barksdale empire. For the officers, the consequences of antagonizing their superiors are severe, with Daniels passed over for promotion and McNulty assigned out of homicide. Production, crew: David Simon is the series creator and head writer, showrunner and executive producer. Alongside Simon, many of the creative team behind The Wire are alumni of Homicide and Emmy-winning miniseries The Corner. The Corner veteran, Robert F. Calisbury, was also executive producer. Calisbury is credited by the rest of the creative team as having a large creative role for a producer, and Simon credits him for achieving the show's realistic visual feel. He also had a small recurring role as Detective Ray Cole. Calisbury's wife Karen L. Thorson joined him on the production staff. A third producer on The Corner, Nina Kostroff-Noble, also stayed with the production staff for The Wire, rounding out the initial four-person team. Stories for the show are often co-written by Ed Burns, a former Baltimore homicide detective and public school teacher who has worked with Simon on other projects including The Corner. The writing staff includes acclaimed crime fiction novelist George P. Pelecanos from Washington, D.C. Pelecanos has commented that he was attracted to the project because of the opportunity to work with Simon. Staff writer Rafael Alvarez was a colleague of Simon's from The Sun and a Baltimore native with working experience in the Port area. Another city native and independent filmmaker, Joy Lisko-Kekin, joined the writing staff and served as the script coordinator. David H. Melnick and Shamit Chokshi complete the writing staff. Homicide alumnus Clark Johnson, who directed several acclaimed episodes of The Shield, directed the pilot, the second episode, and the fifth episode. Another repeat director is Clement Virgo, who directed 2 episodes. Single episode directors include Ed Bianchi, Joe Chappell, Gloria Muzio, Mario Manaevsky, Brad Anderson and Steve Schill. The season finale was directed by Tim Van Patten, an Emmy winner who has worked on every season of The Sopranos. The directing has been praised for its uncomplicated and subtle style. Cast: the major characters of the first season were divided between those on the side of the law and those involved in drug-related crime. The starring cast comprised characters from both groups. The investigating detail was launched by the actions of Detective Jimmy McNulty, whose insubordinate tendencies and personal problems overshadowed his ability. The detail was led by Lieutenant Cedric Daniels, who faced challenges balancing his career aspirations with his desire to produce a good case. Kima Greggs was a capable lead detective who faced jealousy from colleagues and worry about the dangers of her job from her domestic partner. Her investigative work was greatly helped by her confidential informant, a drug addict known as Bubbles. These investigators were overseen by 2 commanding officers more concerned with politics and their own careers than the case, Major William Rawls and Deputy Commissioner Irvin Burrell. Assistant State's Attorney Rhonda Perlman acted as the legal liaison between the detail and the courthouse and also had a casual relationship with one of the officers. In the homicide division, Bunk Moreland was a gifted, dry-witted detective partnered with McNulty. On the other side of the investigation was Avon Barksdale's drug empire. The driven, ruthless Barksdale was aided by business-minded Stringer Bell. Avon's nephew D'Angelo Barksdale ran some of his uncle's territory, but also possessed a guilty conscience. The first season featured several significant characters in recurring roles. Like Detective Greggs, partners Thomas Herkhawk and Ellis Carver were reassigned to the detail from the narcotics unit. The duo's initially violent nature was eventually subdued as they proved useful in grunt work, and sometimes served as comic relief for the audience. Rounding out the temporary unit were detectives Leander Sydnor, Lester Freeman and Roland Przybylewski. Sydnor was a rookie detective with a reputation for solid undercover work. Though not initially important players in the operation, Freeman proved a quietly capable investigator with a knack for noticing tiny but important details, and Bruce, while a liability on the street, turned out to be a natural at his desk job. McNulty and Bunk served in a homicide unit squad led by Sergeant Jay Landsman, the jovial squad commander. Peter Gerety had a recurring role as Judge Phelan, the official who started the case moving. There were also several recurring characters in the Barksdale organization. Lawyer Wee Babe Bryce was responsible for multiple homicides carried out on Avon's orders. Working under D'Angelo were Putkar, Body Broadus, and Wallace, all street-level drug dealers. Wallace was an intelligent but naïve youth trapped in the drug trade, Body a violent and determined young dealer, and Put a lascivious young man happy to follow rather than lead. Omar Little, a notorious Baltimore stick-up man robbing drug dealers for a living, was a frequent thorn in the side of the Barksdale clan. Reception: the first season received positive reviews from critics, some calling it superior to HBO's better-known flagship drama series such as The Sopranos and 6 Feet Under. One reviewer felt that the show was partially a retread of themes from HBO and David Simon's earlier works but still valuable viewing, and described the series as particularly resonant because it parallels the war on terror through the chronicling of the war on drugs. Another review postulated that the series might suffer because of its reliance on profanity and slowly drawn-out plot, but was largely positive about the show's characters and intrigue. Time magazine named the first season as the best TV show of 2002 in their top 10 Everything 2002. Despite the critical acclaim, The Wire has received poor Nielsen ratings, which Simon attributes to the complexity of the plot, a poor time slot, heavy use of esoteric slang, particularly among the gangster characters, and a predominantly black cast. Critics felt the show was testing the attention span of its audience and felt that it was mistimed in the wake of the launch of the successful crime drama The Shield on FX. However, anticipation for a release of the first season on DVD was high at Entertainment Weekly. Awards and nominations: 19th TCA Awards, nomination for Program of the Year, nomination for Outstanding Achievement in Drama, nomination for Outstanding New Program of the Year, Episodes. References. External links: official website, list of The Wire episodes at the Internet Movie Database, list of The Wire Season 1 episodes at TV.com.